Hello everybody, in today's video I want to talk about the much asked question, is there one poem that compares to every other poem? Now in very broad terms we can divide the poems up into power poems, often looking at how humans abuse power or how nature is powerful, and conflict poems, often looking at the reality of war and how it impacts people either in a war zone or the domestic world. And it is true that there are at least a couple of poems which actually have something to say about both of those topics, about power and about conflict, and this overlap might make you think you can use these poems universally in any answer, no matter what the named poem is, but there's more to consider. The first thing to think about is connected to what came up in the 2024 exam. In that exam, the named poem was one of those which can be viewed as being about war and also about the power of nature. I'll give you a hypothetical example because I don't want to say what the poem was in reality, because you might be about to sit this question in a mock exam. But let's imagine the named poem was Exposure. Now, Exposure is a poem that says something about the power of nature, and also a poem that says something about the reality of conflict, the reality of war. And in theory, that means you could look at it in a way to compare it to every other poem. So you could think to yourself, I'm going to memorize everything to do with exposure, and I'm going to choose that as my second poem, no matter what. And on the off chance that Exposure is the named poem, I'm going to write about the reality of war being filled with avoidable suffering, and I'm going to compare it to the charge of the Light Brigade, and therefore I'm just going to learn Exposure and the charge of the Light Brigade. Well, there's a problem with that. There are a number of problems with that kind of approach. Whilst this poem and some others can be interpreted in numerous ways, the question itself will be very specific. So sticking with Exposure, let's imagine the question was something like, compare how poets present ideas about the power of nature in Exposure and one other poem. And this is basically what happened in the 2024 exam, but with a different poem. It was a poem which you could look at in two different ways, but the question was very focused on just one of those. Can you see what's happening here? The wording of the question is about the power of nature. So my thinking that I would compare it to the charge of the Light Brigade just isn't going to work, because Tennyson's poem says nothing about the power of nature. And this is what has happened in a couple of past exams. We see it in the exam reports. It was clear some students had decided on a poem they were going to compare no matter what, and that was a problem. One report said, and this is a paraphrase, that the difficulty with weaker answers often stemmed from the second poem, where some poems chosen were simply unsuitable. And another report said the choice of the second poem often determined the success of the response. So let's just focus on that last one. If the choice of the second poem often determines the success of the response, you do not want to limit yourself. You want to have the wide variety to choose from, so you can choose the best second poem, no matter what the question or the named poem is. So that's one thing to consider, but you could say, well, I'll just add another poem into the mix to learn if the question is about the power of nature. But this is another way things get difficult, especially if you're aiming for the top marks. The highest marks are awarded to students who present a line of argument, a hypothesis which they explore throughout their answer, not just making the same point time and time again. Now imagine you've already decided you're going to choose Exposure as your second poem, no matter what the named poem is, and you're faced with the question about the presentation of power in Extract from the Prelude and one other poem. Well, there is really just one connection between these two poems. Nature is powerful, and what you're going to end up doing is writing a very repetitive answer. You might write about how nature is powerful in Extract, shown through the monosyllabic repetition, a huge peak, black and huge. Nature is powerful in Exposure, shown through the personification of dawn massing in the East her melancholy army. Nature's powerful in Extract, shown through the repetition of no at the end. Nature's powerful in Exposure, shown through the use of para rhyme, and on it goes. There's only one point being made, that nature is powerful. And if we're aiming for top marks, we want to do more than repeat the same idea time and time again. In fact, the 2018 exam report said that unless students create a plan for their answer responses often become repetitive, making the same point time and time again, instead of building a developed line of argument. So a developed line of argument has more than one point to make. It might be something like, whilst humans think they are powerful, it is nature that is truly powerful. And now this becomes a concept, a theory, a line of argument that develops. I'm not going to just say one thing. I'm going to perhaps spend half of my answer looking at how humans initially think they're powerful, and the next half looking at how nature is truly powerful. With that in mind, I won't be repeating the same point time and time again, and I'll be looking to access the higher levels of the mark scheme. Now here, our idea, our concept has two parts, and if we think about these two parts, exposure doesn't connect very well, because whilst I can write something about the second part, the power of nature, I can't really write anything about the first part, how humans think they're powerful. The poem doesn't really say anything about that. So actually, I want to come up with a line of argument, and to do that, I need to know all of the poems to allow me to come up with that complex line of argument, depending on what the named poem is and what the question is. So for me, there's no way around it. You need to know all 15 poems, especially if you're aiming for the top marks. Now, of course, you might have some favourites that in an ideal world you'd be looking to write about, but you should not go in with the mindset that there are one or two poems you're going to choose no matter what the question is. Even when we divide the poems into groups, which I went through in a recent video, and I'll link that in the description, we don't know for sure what the groupings are. We might get a question and topic on a group that we haven't even thought about before. And another thing is, it's no good revising one poem about something like the power of nature and then finding that's the named poem. So I think the simple answer is you want to learn all 15 poems, and then whatever the question is, whatever the named poem is, you're going to be in the best position to choose the best poem to compare. Now, on screen, I'm linking my epic video with 3 points of analysis on every power and conflict poem. Go and have a look at that if you haven't done so already. I spent about 6 months working on that video, so I like to link it. But if you have already seen it, give the video a thumbs up and please do subscribe to the channel.